Hi, welcome back. I am JJ Morgan. I am the conference coordinator for Voces Digital. I just finished the CI Summit. I see some faces and some names who were at CI Summit, so it was really good to see you again. It was just a few days ago in Oklahoma, so it was a wonderful 3-day long conference. I also plan our um, presence at state, regional, and national conferences too. So it's a good chance you will see me. If Voces goes to your state, it's a good chance you'll see me there. But today we're going to talk about vocabulary and specifically about making vocabulary words stick. How to keep them in a student's mind or how to get them in students' minds and have them stay. So we're going to start with what is vocabulary so that we have a common definition and common usages among us and why do we teach it. We'll talk about visuals, gestures, and personalization. We'll talk about making it fun with games and using warm-ups and exit tickets to round out our routines. And then we'll finish up with scaffolding and keeping our vocabulary engaging. So that's a lot to do in an hour. So crossing our fingers, we make it all the way through. So vocabulary and why we teach it. Vocabulary is a set of words that make up a language. Yes, but they're also the words and expressions students need to understand, speak, read, and write in the target language. And I'm going to say that every region has a slightly different group of words that they use. They have their own terminologies. They have their own slang. Sometimes they have their own idioms. Oops, wrong button. For example, my brother and I were raised in East Central Indiana, close to Ohio. So we have super Midwestern, super middle of the country vocabulary, super Midwestern accents. And my brother up and moved to Lexington, Kentucky 10 years ago. And I'll go down and visit him, or he'll come back up and visit me. And I'm looking at him thinking, what language are you using? These are not words I use in ways that you're using them, right? So we need to give our students lots and lots and lots and lots of rich vocabulary to be able to use. So vocabulary is the foundation for communication. It's essential for all forms of communication, reading, writing, listening, speaking. It's important for comprehension and fluency. A strong vocabulary improves listening and reading comprehension. Has anyone noticed that reading comprehension or reading skills in general have declined in the last 5-ish years? Yeah, I see some heads shaking, some nods. I'm not sure what that is about and what we need to do to remedy it, but we for sure need to get the reading comprehension back up in our student population. But having strong vocabulary helps learners become more fluent speakers and writers. It allows them to express ideas more clearly and precisely. Words carry cultural meaning and help students understand cultural context, idioms, and expressions unique to a region. So this is similar to what I was just saying about my brother and I when we're carrying on a conversation, and he's just 3 hours south of me, but they use a completely different lexicon, not a completely different, but they use different phrases than what I am accustomed to using. So having a strong vocabulary builds confidence. Knowing key vocabulary will boost that student confidence. When they can recognize or use words in conversation or writing, they feel more capable and motivated. And Sue writes, yes, for example, the expression in French, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, je déteste, maybe, can't be understood as a cognate if my 9th graders don't understand the English word. About 3/4 of my class didn't understand the word in English. And so, yeah, to that point also, a cognate isn't a cognate if a student doesn't recognize it as such, right? If they don't recognize the word in English, it's not a cognate. It's just a vocabulary word. It's just another word for them. So those are important things to keep in mind. Vocabulary and grammar go hand in hand. Learning vocabulary in context helps students see how words function in sentences, supporting their grasp of sentence structure. And in a variety of languages, sentence structure is very different than it is in English. But teaching vocabulary is not just about memorizing word lists. It's about equipping learners with the tools they need to interact meaningfully and effectively in another language. So hopefully some of the tips that I have in this presentation will help you boost that for students. So let's talk about visuals, gestures, and personalization. Visuals bypass translation. I don't have to translate what this animal is into English because I can put it on the board and I can say the word. It is a cognate in Spanish. I don't know if it's a cognate in other languages, but I can just say the word and point to the image. I don't ever have to use the English because this image is so vivid, it completely bypasses the need to translate it. Images aid in long-term memory retention. Creating a story and telling a story about where this bridge goes, just taking 2 minutes and creating a story together as a class is going to help build their ability to keep that word, the word for bridge, in their long-term memory. Images make learning more accessible and thereby more equitable, right? Because maybe in your house, in the school that I taught in most recently, we had many, many languages. And the word that I use for this animal wasn't the word that someone from another culture or another country used. So the image itself makes acquiring the second language more accessible and more equitable. The downside to using lots of images is you have less text and more pictures. Now, that's only a downside if you are someone like me, which I'm assuming you are if you're a language teacher. We love words, right? We love to have words on our screens. We want the words. But with images, we don't have to have them, right? We can just rely on the images. Pictures take less effort to comprehend. I can be talking about the bird, and you know it's a bird because I'm pointing at that creature, which is very clearly a bird. Your eye is always going to go to the image because vision takes up 50% of your brain's resources. 50%. That's a lot. That is so much of your brain's resources. If we can free up the rest of your brain because they recognize the word and they don't have to struggle with what the word is, then we're aiding in their retention and their acquisition. Jacqueline says, I actually prefer pictures, maybe because I was SLP background. I can hardly order food in a restaurant if the menu is only words. You know what's really funny, Jacqueline, is twice I have been on a cultural exchange to Japan, and I took students to a ramen restaurant. And the first thing you see when you walk into the ramen restaurant is a vending machine. And the vending machine has pictures. It has Japanese words too, but none of us could read Japanese. So we relied on the picture. We punched the button for whichever ramen we thought we wanted, and then we took a ticket to the counter. So we really, really relied on those visuals. So I totally know what you mean. So a pro tip, always use clear
in progress.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a question? No, must have been an accident. A pro tip, always use clear, culturally appropriate, and contextually relevant images to enhance both understanding and cultural competence. And here's a tip, Google's biased. I really want you to be careful when you're finding images on Google, especially if you are finding images of students, because it can be difficult to find one, pictures of female students, unless you specifically put it in there in your search, but of diverse students. The first, I don't know how many, a lot, number of images that come up with Google are going to be Caucasian kids and Caucasian adults. So use clear pictures, use culturally appropriate pictures, and contextually relevant images. So we have lots and lots of images in Voces already, which you know if you are a current user. This is a panorama from Chichicastenango in Nuestra Historia Uno. And you can scroll these 360 degrees up, down, and around and see everything that's going on in this image. Laura says, hello, did this start at 10 a.m.? We are in Arizona. So this started 12 minutes ago at 1 p.m. here in the Eastern time zone. This morning, it started at 10 a.m. Eastern with several other presentations. But don't worry, Laura, if you missed anything, all the sessions are being recorded. So you can see them at any time. Once the recordings are available, we'll upload them and send you links. Here is a panorama from Notre Histoire 1, also with a can-do statement. And so these are all just images of panoramas just to show you as an example. This is Puentes, our middle school Spanish curriculum, to show you that we have so many images, and they're definitely culturally appropriate. So some more ways that you can use visuals, flashcards, individual or whole class, and you can gamify it. And I do this with a unit that I teach about the ocean, and students really need to know the names of animals that are not so common here in the Midwest, right? We don't talk about whales, and we don't talk about crabs, and we don't talk about mollusks, right? And those aren't necessarily common words for them to use all that much in English. So they're not going to be common for them to use, to have already acquired in their second language. So I have big images on just 8.5 by 11 paper that I have laminated, and we start learning them flashcard style. And we do it just slowly at first, one at a time. I'll pull one up, and if they don't remember it, I've got the word on the back, and the English translation, and then I show it to them. And then we do it in teams, and then I do it more game-based, where maybe they're writing the definition on a whiteboard and holding the whiteboard up as fast as they can. And so or do it matching on the floor, right? We make a great big matching board where they'll have the word in Spanish and the name on a different card, and they have to match them up. They have to find them. And we do it as a big floorboard, and we divide up in teams and play that way. Will the grammar-based books have images embedded with the vocabulary words? Martha, I'm not positive, but like Romulo said, we'll get you that answer soon. Image-based matching, which is what I kind of just talked about. More ways to use visuals. You can label the picture. You can flash up a picture and students can write down an answer, a label for it. You can do this as an exit ticket where you flash up pictures and they just write 1 through 5 and they write the labels and turn it in. You can flash a picture and have them describe the scene. Right? There are lots and lots and lots of ways that we can use visuals. So gestures, total physical response. I don't know how many of you have used it. I'm certain a lot of you have heard of it. So we're going to go through some details about TPR. So TPR uses concrete, actionable vocabulary. So anything that you can act out can be used for TPR. The teacher models the action with a word, and then the students respond physically. Romulo, can you send Milka to the other session, to the breakout room? And Jacqueline has made Quizlets for all of her vocab lists using pictures and words, and then she links them in Google or adds them into Voces. And as you will see later on, or may have seen earlier today, editing in Voces is becoming way, way easier. So you model the action word and then the students respond physically. A pro tip, you can increase your complexity over time. So you can, one second, I'll see if I can do that, Milka. Okay. Thanks, Romulo. Increase the complexity over time. So maybe your word is runs and students have to act like they're running. Well, you can increase the complexity. They can run slowly. You can do it with emotions. They can run romantically, whatever that means. They can run sad. They can run happy. They can run fast. So you increase the complexity over time. Once they have the base down, then you have them, then you have the basis and you can build. Why does TPR work? Well, it's multi-sensory. It uses audio, visual, and kinesthetic. Teresa loves using gestures. Her students like when she plays Simon Says. Yep. Where you say the word and they have to do the gesture. Yep. TPR is low stress. It honors the nonverbal phase of acquisition. Memory boost. You have a big memory boost due to the movement. And it's compelling. Compelling means it's interesting. It's fun. It's the opposite of boring, right? You can move to personalized question and answer, and that is for short PQA. And it doesn't matter if you are a CI-based teacher for any of these activities or if you are a grammar-based teacher. Introducing vocabulary works these ways for both. So PQA builds conversations that give students a purpose to understand and respond. So you're giving them a reason to be using the vocabulary. So you start with simple questions in the target language. Use vocab that the students are currently acquiring, and you incorporate preferences, routines, opinions. And if your students are like my students, they're full of opinions and they love to express them. So it's called personalized question and answer for a reason. We want to make it about the students. Oh, hi, Nicole. So why does PQA work? It builds in real world communication skills. It makes vocabulary more meaningful and more memorable. It encourages student participation and confidence. It provides natural repetition of key language structures, and it strengthens class relationships through shared, and that should be information. Oh, and Aaron just added, just a quick note, we will work on adding photos and images to vocab in Voces por el Mundo and Voix du Monde. So yes. A pro tip with PQA is you throw in you, I, or she, he variations, so second person, first person, and third person, to build repetitions of the same structures. Let's go back to that. So if you're asking a student, do you like to play baseball? Then you can ask another student, whatever and the student answers no. Then you can ask a third student, well, does Sue like to play baseball or not like to play baseball? Right? Do I like to play baseball? And so that's a really, really basic PQA example. Games, warm-ups, and exit tickets. Okay, no worries, Nikki. You are back to school. Boy, these teachers that have to start back in July, I feel for you. And Lori says, I tell my students, we gesture meaning, not grammar. So we use the gesture for all conjugation forms and throw in a gesture for tense. So present tense, future, past, whatever your gesture might be. Yeah. Yeah. I always tell my students also that they should translate for meaning and not translate word for word. Because if they translate word for word, then they have to worry about rebuilding the sentence back in their first language, right? But if you translate for meaning, then you're just going for your general understanding. I do that when I'm grading too. I try to grade for what the student is trying to say rather than grading for accuracy. Ruth is back at school too. It's always a good day with a Voces conference going on at the same time. Thank you, Ruth. That's really nice. We love doing these conferences. They're a lot of fun. So some games that you can use: charades, Pictionary, Look It. We search Voces title and chapter. We have lots and lots and lots, like all of them, all the vocabulary lists in Look It. Simon Says, one word image, and I am going to pop the link for one word image here in the chat for you. This is one for distance learning, and I know I had some questions earlier today about specifically distance learning, so that's why I'm putting this link in the chat for you. There is also one for one word image. Type in the chat if you use one word image in your classroom, or if you have heard of it, or if you would like to try it.
Création.
Try it. I'd like to try it. I've heard of it, but never tried it. Yes, we use it. So I taught with a teacher who was amazing at it. You just ask questions that you get one word responses for. So what is there? And they have to decide what there is. And how many eyes does it have? And they only throw out a number. Is it tall or short? Like, you go through a variety of questions to build a character, and someone in class can draw that character. That person can't be me because this is exactly how much drawing talent I have, 0. And everything that I try to draw on the board ends up looking like a blob. It doesn't look like anything that I'm trying to draw. So a student, someone who has that can be someone's student job, classroom job. Ashley says she uses it at the start of the year and her kids love it. The characters usually stick around for stories. Yeah, you can reuse and reuse and reuse those characters. I didn't use one word image, but one year Sam's Club was selling giant heads, like monster heads and dog heads and unicorn heads at Halloween. And I bought some of those, and my kids loved the green alien. And he became Steve, and Steve was in so many stories, it's not even funny. And Steve went all over the universe, and he went all over the planet Earth. And Steve had 942 kids, and Steve had 12 arms. And, we just worked in so much really good, rich vocabulary with Steve, that you could do with one word images. It would be fun to make an AI image of the OWI and compare it to the artist's rendition. Talk about similarities and differences. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Someone who's doing a lot, not necessarily with that in particular, but a lot with images in AI is Bill Langley. So look up Languagely, I think is what his blog is. He also has a podcast. Maybe it's called Slay. Yes, it's called Slay. And it's with 2 other language teachers. So I've been going really, really fast. Are there any questions at this point? Is there anything that anyone's just dying to know? I can wait a moment
Yes,
because
send
I know.
the link for the how to do the one word image.
Okay.
The
I
one that
have,
isn't the distance learning.
okay. The Ben
Please.
Slavic one.
Yes, please send that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Slay, second language acquisition for everyone. That's the podcast. Okay, anything else before I motor right on? All right. Oh, that was just and then Aaron added in the podcast for second language acquisition right there. Calendar talk is one of my favorite ways of introducing vocabulary. So you use the calendar as a tool for daily conversation in the target language. 5-10 minutes a day. The first few times you do it, it may take the whole class period. Or you may have a class that's so engaged with it that it takes the whole class period. I've had both of those situations happen. You may introduce it. You may be a teacher at a new school, or your third years have never done calendar talk, and it only takes them 5 minutes to do it, right? Because they have a lot of vocabulary. The amount of time doesn't matter. The fact that you do it frequently over time is what matters. So it helps students acquire vocabulary related to days, dates, weather, seasons, holidays, birthdays, daily activities, numbers. You can teach all the numbers with the calendar. All of them with the calendar. And it makes it repeatable. You do it through repetitive and meaningful interaction. So make it part of your routine. Make it a regular warm-up activity. Teach the numbers, hobbies, activities, sports. Teach the future tense. what will you do this weekend? Or in lower levels, what are you going to do this weekend? The present tense and the past tense. What did you do last night? Or what did you do this morning in math class? Or what did you do when you arrived at school or over the weekend? Include feelings and emotions, weather. I think I talked about some of those a couple times here. And I actually had a classroom with a chalkboard that I was doing this on. I had my Teacher's Discovery dry erase board right above that we would talk about. And then below it, I used chalk paint pens, that you can just clean off with a damp cloth. And I would write out the number. I would write out the day of the week. I would write out the year. So it didn't matter what we were talking about. It went underneath the calendar and it stayed there for a long time because we were going to circle back to that eventually. Like we were going to circle back if the girls were playing a volleyball game, if they're going to play one tonight, I'm going to ask about it tomorrow, right? So that I can talk about the past tense with them. How did it go? Did you win? Did you lose? How do you feel about that? So set up a visual calendar area, introduce the day's information, and ask understandable questions. Just small bites, little tiny small bites that you build over time. Just itty bitty. There are lots of videos that show examples of doing calendar talk. I don't have one pulled up, but I can definitely search for some after the presentation is over, and throw some into one of the chats. Pro tip, make it personal and meaningful. It's a great place to practice PQA, right? It's a great place to practice how to ask questions that students are going to want to respond to. It doesn't have to be yes or no questions or either or questions. They can answer about their lives and you can provide vocabulary for them that way. So why does calendar talk work? It's zero prep, none at all. You know the day of the week, you know the month, you know the year, you know the numbers. It's no prep at all. I love activities that I do not have to plan in advance. It provides daily low stress exposure to high frequency vocabulary. It builds a routine that reinforces listening and speaking skills. It encourages personalized input, talking about your classes, that might be too many S's, real life events. It allows for natural repetition with slight variation, which is key for language acquisition. Did I mention that it's zero prep? Right? It's part of your routine that you don't have to worry about. You know you're going to do it, especially at the beginning of the year. You might do it every single day for 10 minutes for 2 months. And then after that, you maybe are only going to do it twice a week for 5 minutes, right? But it is the repetition and continuing to do it over and over and over. And you don't have to have a unit that surrounds the vocabulary. You don't have to have a unit about numbers. You don't have to have a unit about hobbies, because if you're doing this frequently over time, you're going to work all of that in there. You don't have to have, you can talk about foods this way. You don't have to have a unit about food. What did you eat last night? What's your favorite food? It's Christmas. What traditions does your family have? Let's compare it to another family's traditions. An interesting one that we talk about in my class is the fact that I always make spaghetti and meatballs on Christmas Eve every year. And my students are like, that is the weirdest meal to have on Christmas Eve. I'm like, you're right, but here's the background story. And I can draw pictures and I can do it in a simple comprehensible, acting out way, and I don't have to use a lot of English. So let's talk about exit tickets. Do you use daily exit tickets in your class? Show a hand or pop a yes or a no into the chat. Maybe put in yes, no, but I want to. Yes, no, but I want to this year. Okay. You would like to. Rarely. Okay. I'm going to tell you it is one of the most successful ways of wrapping up a lesson. And I didn't do them every single day in class. Some weeks I did them every single day. Other weeks I did a couple in a week. I think at least 2 every week I made it. Only occasionally. Sue has hesitated because it means some students are in the hallway before the bell rings, doesn't it? How do you handle this? No, I do the last 5 minutes of class and they have to sit there and answer my questions. That's what we do for the last 5 minutes. It's not necessarily as you are walking out the door. It's an exit ticket because it's the last thing that I do of the day. They're a powerful tool for building vocabulary in world language classroom because they provide quick, focused, meaningful opportunities for students to process and personalize new language right at the point of learning, right at the moment. You can capture, it's very powerful. Something that you can do is draw and label something that you talked about in class, right? This might be one where you have 10 minutes left in class and not just 5. An emoji, post emojis on the whiteboard and choose an emoji to describe your day. Write 1 sentence in the target language using a word we learned today. Write 1 word you remember from today's class and tell what it means in English. Describe 1 word from today's lesson without saying it. So this is teaching circumlocution, right? Your classmates will guess it tomorrow. So they have to describe the word in writing, turn it in, and then you choose some and read the content. And yes, Martha, Voces has a lot of really nice exit tickets built in. Yes. Fill in the blank using a word from today. Today in Spanish class, I saw what did you see? A giraffe? Did you see a whale? Did you see a bird? Right? All of those were in my images. Would you rather? Do you prefer eating pizza or ice cream? And why? Why exit tickets work? They're low prep. It's low hanging fruit. They're easy to do. They reinforce concepts. They encourage active recall. They boost long-term memory. They provide contextual practice. They're low stakes. They give students voice and choice, especially if you're doing what do you prefer? Would you rather? They give you immediate feedback and they encourage reflection and ownership. Something that I didn't put in here and that I like to do is at the beginning of the day, I'll write down an answer key of yes, no, no, yes, no, or any variation of that. And that's my answer key for the day. And I just ask, I have that in my hand and I ask students questions about what we did in class that day. And I tell them at the very beginning, I'm making these questions up as I go along. I can say it once and I can repeat it once. I can't get to question number 3 and go back and tell you number 1. So they have to be paying attention. And I don't grade them every day. And I collect them every day, but I don't grade all of them every day. I pick and choose the days that I'm going to collect them. So scaffolded and engaging. Scaffolding. Scaffold your lesson, scaffold your vocabulary by increasing the lexical complexity or use more complex word combinations as students become more confident. And as they know more language, just increase, increase, increase. With scaffolding, you're going to do it in ways that mimic natural language acquisition. So we start by just knowing words and phrases. Then we're able to produce sentences. They might be short, but they're whole sentences. And then we slowly move to paragraphs, right? So scaffold your vocabulary and your expectations in that way. So recycle vocabulary in multiple activities. Use it in listening. Use the same vocabulary in your reading, in your drawing, in your acting. Keep reusing that vocabulary. For scaffolding and engaging, you want repetition that builds confidence and memory, but variation keeps it interesting and engaging. Oh, yes. Thank you, Martha and Elise, for answering those questions. So if you are not paying attention to the chat, check out the chat. We've got some good stuff going on in there too. So you're varying the way that you provide the vocabulary. You're changing up what your students are seeing and hearing and the context of it but still using the same core vocab. And my favorite way to do that is with a story. Humans are storytellers. When you go to work, you naturally talk to your colleagues about what you did over the weekend or what you do calendar talk at the water cooler, right? You do calendar talk in the office. You tell your colleagues what you did and what you're going to do, and you share your stories back and forth. Stories transmit information, they share history, and they teach important lessons. A beautiful thing happens when you are telling a story, and that is the listener's brain does this electromagnetic sync up with the storyteller's brain. Okay, so let that sink in for a minute. You're building community when you tell stories, especially when you share some of that vocabulary that you learned about your students, some of those things that you've done in your calendar talk and your card talk and playing your games and getting to know your students. You all start to sync up together. And that is the actual science behind community building in your classroom. By engaging students with compelling stories that impart important material, teachers reach students both emotionally and biochemically. That's Steven Silber and Hassan from 2010. So when you're telling a story, your words are the cookies, right? Your vocabulary are the cookies. They're all words. They're different kinds of words. And you need to repeat and repeat and repeat, because if you start talking about this chocolate cookie over here, I'm the weirdo that's going to tune out because I don't care for chocolate, right? That's not something I care about. Or maybe I detest chocolate, so I'm going to pay more attention because I really want to express my opinion because I'm a teenager who has an opinion and you need to hear it, right? Maybe everyone hates the mint cookies in your classroom, but they love the Mexican wedding cakes, the snowballs, right? So you're repeating the vocabulary in a variety of contexts, and you're not doing it because a certain number of repetitions is a magic number for acquiring a word. That's just not true. The research that has been done about you have to hear a word 40 times, like pollination. You have to hear a word so many times, X number of times before you can say that you know that word, that you've internalized that word. That research is done based on individual lists. It's not done based on how vocabulary is saved in your brain, how it's stored. So you can have one good time, just one good repetition, one good story, one good activity, and that will cement that word in your students' heads. I had one good story where a whale was the central character, and the whale was bigger than the moon, but lived on the moon, right? And my students 3 years later are still saying the word whale and throwing it into stories. So you just need one good one. You need to keep the core language the same, but change the context to increase novelty while reinforcing understanding. So a pro tip, always stay in bounds. And that means always use the language that your students know, but keep it just a tiny bit above that level. Krashen calls it I+1, and you're going to use visual, verbal, and emotional cues to keep input comprehensible. So that is our session about making vocabulary stick. I didn't mention, I didn't have in my slides, but you know that Voces is full of stories. Even our grammar-based series has stories in it to help you reinforce the vocabulary. And I highly encourage you, even if you are using one title or the other, check out the stories from other titles and see what you can use. What kinds of questions do you have?
I love all the things.
Oh,
I,
thanks.
well, JJ, I don't know if you, I, a lot of the things, yeah, I was going to say what Rebecca said, a lot of reminders. These are things I do, but I don't always do. And it's just good to hear a refresher at the beginning of the year. Oh yeah, I got to do that. Oh yeah, I got to do that. I don't know. Do you remember that I switched from middle school to elementary?
I do remember because you're literally half a mile from my house.
There you go. Oh, that's right. We talked about your daughter. Yes. Okay. So, well, this year they switched the schedule from me seeing the little guys twice a week to once a week for 60 minutes.
Oh,
So, yeah, and I'm using Nuestra Historia Primaria, and
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
I love it for the little ones, and it's very nice to do, but it takes forever to get through a story.
right.
Just saying. But I wanted to say, calendar talk, I never used to do that daily, but I think it's very powerful. So because now I've got 60 minutes, I'm gonna make that part of like to break it up, do like a bell
Mhm.
ringer, because they come to me. So do like a bell ringer, a share, a calendar talk, a couple of activities, and an exit ticket. And I'm gonna just kind of structure a daily. After hearing you talk, I kind of formulated in my head, hey, I can break this up to keep their little attention spans, because
Yeah,
60 minutes for first grade.
it's a lot. Did you
Yeah.
see that Martha says her heart goes out to you?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. But I
so
think it'll work. I think it'll work the
yeah,
way, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's gonna work, and just scaffold. My thing is what I need to figure out, a question I have, because I want to use Primaria again. Like I kind of been doing like grade level bands because I teach 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So like for the 1, 2, I've been doing a story. And then like for 3, I've been doing a different story.
yeah,
4, 4, 5, I haven't been using because I've been doing Vamos with 4, 5.
yeah.
Although our district is kind of poo-pooing Vamos for 4, 5, but I'm like, why?
I don't
It's
know.
good. So anyway, because they're saying it's more appropriate for like exploratory in 6th grade, but I'm like, no,
Oh,
it's just as good for 4th and 5th grade. But anyway, so but my question is, do you have any tips on the scaffolding for the different grade level bands? Do you think that's good to do different stories, or should I use the same stories and draw in more details? Because they're already
I think,
familiar with the stories from the previous year, because it's the same kids and I'm
yeah.
seeing them again. Because they're going to be
So,
like, oh, we already did the story about blah, blah, blah.
yeah. And you can say, but you don't know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
You mean you can
Yeah,
do
I
that,
was,
or
what
just,
do you,
or you, I would probably, if I'm repeating with kids, and I have a couple other questions that I want to answer too,
my
but
bad, sorry.
no, it's okay. If kids were repeating, I would probably change the story and keep the vocabulary structures. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would do, but try it both
Okay.
ways. So
Okay.
someone asked a little bit ago if I collected the exit tickets. I always collect the exit tickets so that students don't know which day they're going to be graded, but I don't always grade them, and I don't always record the ones that I grade. I record the ones that they do well on because I want my students to feel successful. Um, I had another
Wait, sorry,
question.
my question about the exit tickets was, do you give them back?
Oh, do
And do
I?
you give
Yes,
feedback
yes.
on them?
Yeah. And for a couple of years, I told students I was tired of wasting paper, so I wanted them to keep the same piece of paper and answer the yes, no, or true, false questions just on the same piece of paper. And so, like, they would just write, we had an entire year on the front and back of one piece of paper. Um, because it was just 5 to 10 questions, yes, no, or true, false. I do give them back and we talk about them, and we talk about if they did well as a class, and if they didn't do well as a class. And if they didn't do well as a class, that was on me. And so we tried again. We changed the vocabulary, or we changed the context and hit that vocabulary again. Um, let's see. Any strategies for students who are too cool for school and who don't want to do the gestures back to you? Man, that's tough. I know kids are, it's tough. Um, Try creating the gestures together. Or maybe try using ESL. I mean, ASL, American Sign Language gestures. I've done both of those. I let the class kind of vote. Do you want to create gestures, or do you want to use American Sign Language gestures for these words? And so that you're learning a little bit of that as well. And I've had classes choose either way. Um, So calendar talk is fun. You can also do movie talk, picture talk, or object that you have in the class, or sometimes students volunteer to be the subject. I have a friend who does the magic music story, and she always tells the story. She takes the vocabulary that the students are learning at that time and finds a popular music video and tells the story of the music video, not the vocabulary of the song, but tells the story of what's happening in the music video, and then plays the video at the end and to kind of surprise students that what this story was about. And it's usually a song that they know. Um, and remembering each class's gestures, it can be a chore. Teresa, you're right. It can be a big chore. It can be a chore. Are there any other questions?